Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little mini March wrap up. If you guys have been watching for the past few months, you will know that March was wedding month. So really we were just doing the best we could whenever it came to reading. Really was nowhere near my best month at all. I'm just glad I managed to get a few books read. So today we're going to have a pretty quick wrap up to get through. But before we hop in, I want to be sappy for just a minute or two and say thank you to all of those that have subscribed, especially recently. The day I'm filming this, we just hit 500 subscribers, which feels kind of crazy because my first consistent video on this channel was doing my March wrap up last year. So really grateful for everyone who's come along on this journey. It's really hard for me to feel proud of myself, but I am super proud of what we've done so far, and I hope that this next year ahead is even better. So with that sappiness out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some reading stats for March. With it being a lighter month, I read 6 books in total. I've completely been in my romance era, so 3 of those were romance. Then we had 1 fantasy, 1 mystery, and 1 memoir. I don't know how this is possible, but I managed to read 4 out of the 5 books on my TBR. Again, I wouldn't say this was my best month rating wise. I had a 3.4 average, and for the total pages read, it was 1,875 pages. So let's go ahead and talk about some books. To kick it off on maybe a little bit of a controversial start, I read book 2 in the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes called Killer Instinct. I don't have the physical because I have since given the book series to my friend, but this is a YA mystery series which has often been described as a YA Criminal Minds. These group of teens all have some type of natural abilities, whether that's being able to detect lies, being great with numbers, being a natural profiler. They're all put together in this program called the Naturals Program through the FBI, where they are supposed to be solving cold cases. However, out of the 2 books I read, both cold cases turned into active cases that connected to the kids' lives. And as you can see with the 2-star rating, I didn't really enjoy it. I rated book 1 in the series a 2.5 stars and this a 2 stars, which I definitely hold true to. I think this book was written a little bit worse than book 1, but the main thing that I just didn't enjoy about it is simply the content. I did not love getting some perspectives in the viewpoint of a serial killer. It just made me feel really gross inside. It's just not something that aligns with my personality at all. I really don't know what I was thinking picking up this series, but that's besides the point. Something I found so frustrating while reading this book is that we're so constantly reintroduced to everyone's ability. It literally happens every single chapter, multiple times a chapter. And I understand wanting to reaffirm what their talents are because it can get confusing whenever you're following multiple characters. But I don't need to be reminded every single time we enter into a scene. I just feel like it didn't give any credit to the reader, and maybe that's simply because it was geared towards YA. Overall, I just felt like it was over-explained and made the book feel stunted in its progression. Additionally, I just felt like the plot of book 2 was strangely too familiar to book 1. I understand how that does end up connecting at the very end, but it did just feel like a little bit of weak writing. With the number of characters, with a variety of cases that the FBI sees, I felt like we could have done more with the story and pushing the boundaries of what these kids are learning through these investigations. I know a lot of people love the series. I definitely am in the minority with this one, but hey, sometimes it's good to push yourself, try something new. And now I know that serial killer books just really aren't for me. On a much different note, the next book I read in March was The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. This is an adult contemporary romance with a heavy dose of magical realism. In the first chapter, our FMC Delphi chokes on a microwave burger and ends up passing away. While she's in the afterlife, she ends up running into one of her soulmates. However, he's not supposed to be there and ends up getting sent back to Earth, but her afterlife therapist, who is obsessed with romance novels, gives her a second chance to go back to Earth, and if she's able to find her soulmate and have him kiss her in 10 days, she'll be able to go back to Earth like nothing ever happened. So we end up just following the craziest series of events while Delphi tries to find her soulmate Jonah, and she quickly realizes that she's not going to be able to do this alone. The best part of this book is the journey that she goes on to get there, the friends and relationships she makes along the way, because Delphi did not put a priority around building a community around her whenever she was on Earth. She lived a very secluded and lonely life. So seeing where she goes from at the start of this book to the end is so heartwarming and cute, but I do have to say, like, you have to be prepared for some of the most absurd humor if you're going to pick up this book. If you want a super realistic story, a super realistic romance, this definitely isn't going to be for you, but it is absolutely outlandish and kooky. So you have to buckle up for quite a crazy ride. The next book I read was Savor It by Tarah DeWitt. And I do have to say, I just am absolutely in love with this author's covers. I have another one up here and they are just such fun, summery vibes. And I'm pretty sure that all of her books are on Kindle Unlimited too. But let's talk about Savor It. This is a small town romance where our MMC moves from New York to this small coastal town in an attempt to rebuild his career. While being an up-and-coming chef in New York, he experiences quite a bit of grief and burnout with his career that ends up losing him a Michelin star on his restaurant. So his boss sends him to this small coastal town to consult on the new restaurant that they're building. Him and his niece end up moving next door to Sage for the summer. Our MMC's name is Fisher, and as he's trying to start his consulting work with the restaurant, he gets a lot of pushback from the townspeople. So he ends up teaming up with Sage for a bit of fake dating to try and get everyone on his side. And Sage kind of has two reasons for agreeing to do this. One, she's using the fake dating to make her ex jealous. And two, there's an annual town competition that she needs to partner for, and she needs Fisher's help. I don't know if that felt like a lot of setup to describe to you guys, but it felt a lot of setup when reading it. I don't even feel like we got to all of those plot points until like 50 or 60% of the way through. Like everything I described is on the back of the book, but it took so long to get there. And I just felt like maybe the author was trying to do too much. Fake dating, forced proximity, friends with benefits, while also trying to tackle topics of grief, career burnout, adopting and trying to parent a teenager. There was just a lot going on, and I feel like it ultimately negatively impacted our plot progressing forward, which is why I ended up giving this a 3 stars. This book definitely wasn't bad, I just felt like it was a little messy. These characters are never going to be characters that I end up thinking about. The town, the plot, the book, overall I think is pretty forgettable. So I'm hoping that the other book I have from her is a little bit better. I think this book could have benefited from 1 or 2 less tropes within it. While it's a fun summer read, I don't think it's anything to rush to go get. The only book that I didn't get to this month on my TBR was You with a View by Jessica Joyce. As I got closer to the end of the month, I knew I wasn't gonna have time to read that one. So I ended up picking up a novella that Jessica Joyce has written because I was very much in the mood for her writing. So I read this little spicy holiday novella called A Risk Worth Taking. And this is just a super quick and fun time. I think it's less than 80 pages. It was so quick and easy to get through. But we get introduced to our 2 characters at a holiday Christmas party. Our FMC is working there as a bartender, and she keeps locking eyes with our MMC throughout the night while she's outside basically throwing away the garbage. He ends up finding her in the back alleyway and they have a little moment together. They end up leaving together that night, but the catch is that she's supposed to be moving the next day. So what goes from one night to multiple night ends up turning into a little bit more. And I actually really liked this novella. Did I completely read this in the wrong season? Absolutely. This is much better read around Christmas time. But even with that being the case, I really did enjoy these 2 together, and it only makes me more excited to read more by Jessica Joyce. Next, I have my fantasy book of the month, which was Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is the conclusion in the Crimson Moth duology, where we follow a witch and a witch hunter in this action-packed enemies to lovers romantasy. I was so excited for this book because the way that Heartless Hunter ends off was so good. It felt so high stakes, and I really just couldn't wait to see where the story went from here. However, I found this book to be quite a big letdown. Unfortunately, I think this book is a clone copy of Reckless by Lauren Roberts, and this book has received a lot of heat for being this cat and mouse, really repetitive storyline, and I have to say that this book did the exact same thing. I'm not joking within the storyline. I think it happened 7 times or more where she got captured and he saves her. Then he gets captured and she saves him. Then she gets captured and he saves her. Then he gets captured and she saves him. Like, it just happened over and over again, and the story felt so repetitive. I acknowledge that the plotline was weak in Reckless, for instance. However, their banter made the repetitiveness at least somewhat tolerable. I don't feel like we got any of the really delicious banter that we saw in book 1 in book 2. Add on to the fact that there was quite a bit of miscommunication in this book as well. By the end of it, I was somewhat losing my mind and I was very much looking forward for it to be over with. Honestly, so disappointing. I thought that this was going to be amazing. I feel like we had so much more opportunity to explore the magic system, which was very much just glossed over, told, not shown to us. We could have made the plot so much stronger by leaning into the rebel force sooner into the plot line. So overall, I just have quite a few critiques with this one, and that's a brutal way to end a series. And the last book that I read this month was Matthew McConaughey's memoir called Greenlights. I did listen to this as an audiobook, which I would 10 out of 10 recommend because he narrates it himself. He shares so many fun stories from his life. He honestly has had the most interesting life I've ever heard of. It's really cool to listen to someone who says yes to a lot of things and therefore has one of the most unique life experiences I've ever heard about. It is also really short. The audiobook was only like 6.5 hours, so this is an easy one to get through. I know a lot of people don't rate memoirs or nonfiction. I do, because I'm just rating my experience and my enjoyment levels, and I ended up giving this a 4.5. There's a lot of sections and subsections within the book, antidotes or bumper stickers or sentiments he says that can be kind of confusing to follow whenever he is just narrating it and you aren't able to see the distinction on page. Additionally, if you've ever listened to his voice, you'll know that he has a very unique cadence to it. And I will say sometimes it almost felt like he leaned into the cadence too much, where it was kind of hard to understand because it almost sounded like he was singing a song. So overall, those are just like very minute nitpicky things, which brought my enjoyment down just a hair. I would say if you want to just listen to someone with a really cool life story who has an amazing voice, this would be a great memoir to pick up. It has been so long since I picked up some nonfiction or a memoir, so it was enjoyable just to hear some real stories. It is very captivating and entertaining, and overall I think a great read. So that is it, y'all. This was hopefully my very short and sweet March reading wrap up. If you're still here, leave a comment down below on what was your favorite book that you read this month, or what's a book that you're looking forward to reading next month. But for now, this is where I would love you and leave you, so thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye guys!